Hey everyone, I wanted to make another video here on something that I feel like is also very, very important in astrology, or is something we can use with astrology that I feel like can be very beneficial for us. And this is the integration of our shadow self. For those of you into Jungian psychology or depth psychology are likely already aware of the concept that we have a shadow self. For those of you unfamiliar, essentially the simplest way of looking at it is that let's say when we were raised as children, we identified with certain aspects of who we are. We said, I am this, I am that, or I value this, right? And so there's an identification that happens. And this is obviously the development of our egos, right? So this is how our egos are developed. And so by this identification with this is who I am, this is what I want, naturally, there is an association with this is not who I am. This is not what I want. And so these things that we are not, that the ego is not during our development, is said to get pushed into the unconscious mind or into the shadow self. And then these things then try to seek some sort of expression in our life that as we become more aware of that need to express those unconscious shadow needs, it does help us become more healthy, more balanced, or more individuated, as the Jungian psychologists might say. So in other words, if we integrate our shadow self, we become more holistic, we become more healthy. So what astrology does is astrology essentially shows us our ego self very, it's usually what it's used for. Like our sun sign or moon sign, like these are all aspects of the ego. But astrology can also show us the opposite signs or the opposite houses, right? The opposite energy, which is everything that we are not, right? It's the complete opposite. And so this can show us the shadow self. And this becomes super helpful because, again, as we become more aware of the shadow self and express those qualities in conscious and healthy ways, it just helps us become more balanced as individuals. So here's an example chart. I'm going to use this as an example. You can apply this obviously to your own chart in this same way. So like we said, these planets, especially the sun, the moon, the chart ruler in this case, which is Jupiter, and then Mercury, Venus, and Mars, this definitely represents the ego self, right? This is who we are in the sense of the ego, what we're conscious of in regards to who we are. But opposite all of these things, all of these planets, is the shadow self. So you can almost create a chart where if you put your sun in the complete opposite part of the chart and your moon in the complete opposite part over here and Venus in the opposite part, this would show you the shadow chart, essentially, or your shadow self represented in an astrological chart. But you can do this very simply just looking at your own chart because you can very easily see oppositions based on your planetary placements. So let's take the example of the sun. In this case, this person would have the sun in Libra and in the 11th house. So naturally, as a Libra, the focus is on what's mutually beneficial. It's a lot of focus and awareness in terms of other people's needs and what's right and what's just and what's not going to rock the boat too much. Now, because of that identification, right? So again, the individual said, this is who I am. This is what they identify with. There is then the natural casting of that shadow, which in this case is manifested through Aries and the 5th house, the complete opposite house and the opposite sign. So the shadow sun, you could say, is in Aries in the 5th house, which means that this person being a Libra, and this would generally be the case for most Librans, is that there is this natural unconscious need to express their personal needs and their assertiveness and their directness and their independence. There's an unconscious need here that needs to be manifested, and that's the sun in Aries. They may be totally unaware of this. Now, others can see this potentially. And a really good way of actually becoming aware of your own shadow self is to be aware of the things that get under your skin about other people or trigger you about other people, or things that you're like, oh, I don't like that about this person, or I don't like this person because of such and such. Anything that we see reflected back to us in someone else, any quality we see in someone else that is something that we say, I don't like that, you're more than likely dealing with your shadow there. That's what would be called a shadow projection, and that's showing you, it can be showing you an aspect of your shadow that is needing some integration, some acceptance. Because at the end of the day, to become holistic is to say, okay, these are all these different qualities of life, and I have all of these qualities of life within me, right? All of them. And it's that acceptance of these aspects of the shadow that really does help bring in more balance. So anyway, so back to this example where the sun's in Libra, yeah, it's a lot of that other oriented focus. So what can help balance that out and help this individual become more holistic is to focus on as if they had their sun in Aries, to express their needs, to be assertive, to be direct, right? To express those needs. And then as the person does this consciously, then it's not happening as unconsciously. Now, obviously, we're always going to have unconscious elements of the self. It's, you know, it's endless essentially. But the more that this individual becomes more aware of how they can be more like an Aries in terms of how they express themselves, which is the sun expression. So how they express themselves, being, you know, implementing more Aries energy, they're likely going to find that that does help bring in more balance with that aspect of themselves, and really helps them be a really good balanced Libra, because a totally balanced Libra is someone who is doing the right thing, but is also, you know, doing so with assertiveness and directness and a strong sense of self, right? To do the just thing and the right thing. So, so that's an example there with that in terms of that sign. Now, in terms of the 11th house, this would be this person naturally focused on future ideals, maybe things greater than themselves, which is the 11th house. And so what'll help balance out that energy will be to focus on their own, in this case, passions. What are they passionate about? What do they enjoy? Again, both of these houses and signs are fire, so it deals more with the for this person to become aware of the self. And to assert those needs and to express themselves. And that'll help balance out what is a lot of this other oriented energy with the sun in Libra in the 11th. All right, so that's the example of the sun. But again, you can do this with any other planet. So the moon, for example, in Virgo in the 9th house, this represents not the self-expression, but the inner personality and the emotional worlds and the feelings, right, and the personal life. And so this individual being moon in Virgo, for example, is likely someone who does need some structure, is striving towards improvement, wants to refine things, really improve things, get into the details of things and have that structure. But what will help balance that out is Pisces, surrendering what's outside of our control, right? Being present, surrendering, having faith and trust. That yes, structure and self-discipline and routine and habits are very, very important. This is Virgo. But to balance that out, we need to be able to surrender, let go, have faith and trust, right? Surrender control. And that helps balance out Virgo energy. So again, this would be more in terms of how the person deals with their own personal life and their emotions and their feelings. So how they feel, instead of striving towards control, balancing that with non-control. And when striving towards, say, perfection, balancing that with understanding that everything is perfect actually the way that it is. We can strive towards perfection, but we can also release it, you know. And this is the Pisces energy. And developing things like intuition and creativity and imagination, all this could be super, super healthy and balanced for the individual to do. All right, so so that's another example there. So that's essentially it. You do want to start with your personal planets. If you haven't yet seen the video on how to read a birth chart, I'll put that link down in the comment section down below, because you do want to start there. You want to be able to, you know what Libra is about, and whatever your signs are about. You need to know that. So start there. But if you already do have somewhat of a understanding of what the signs represent, what the houses represent, what the planets represent, then yeah, look at your chart, incorporate some of that opposite energy consciously, and I think you'll find that to be super helpful for you in terms of all areas of your life, especially the areas that are getting activated by these planets. All right, everyone, so have a fantastic day. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.